Hey everybody, how's it going? It's kind of hard to believe this is our third week of not having church together. Isn't that crazy? It's almost gone by fast, which is weird. I hope that it's gone by fast for you, and I certainly hope that you've been able to enjoy these last couple of days where it's been so nice and so beautiful outside and sunny. I wish that you could just tell me through the screen everything that you've been doing. Have you guys been playing, climbing trees, maybe helping your parents in the yard, pulling weeds? I had my kids pulling weeds this week. Fun times. They loved it. Not really. What about anybody play with sidewalk chalk or ride their bike? Yeah. Well, that is awesome. And I know that even in bad circumstances like what we're in and having to kind of stay at home and shelter in place, that there are some great things to be thankful for right now, right? All this getting to spend time with your family, maybe playing some board games or something like that. Things that sometimes we don't have time for otherwise. We're getting to be together. So that's something definitely to be thankful for. I want to talk a little bit, though, about our word of the day. And if everybody can kind of remember back to last week and the weeks before, we've been talking about Jesus dying on the cross, right? And I know you can see the image here of Jesus carrying his cross. In a minute, I want to kind of read a little bit of a story talking about Jesus' time on the cross. And our word for the day, though, is abandonment. Last week, we talked about Jesus saying, I thirst. And this week, Jesus is going to cry out and ask God, why have you forsaken me? And another way to think about that word, forsaken, is abandoned or abandonment. So I want you to pause the video for just a minute and think about that word abandonment. Think about what that might mean. Okay, well, I hope that maybe you've gotten the hang of this now, of this interactive style video where we pause and we discuss maybe the meaning of a word with our siblings or our parents. And I hope that you got a chance to kind of get into a good conversation about what abandonment meant. Well, I hope y'all had a good laugh at how my face stuck there for just a second. But we were in the middle of talking about how or what the word abandonment means. What did you talk about? Did you happen to talk about feeling alone? Yeah. Right. Abandonment, you're left alone. You're feeling alone. Anybody else talk about maybe being scared or sad? Right, those things would go along with feeling alone too. A time where, and if you think about this way, maybe you've been on the playground before and a group of people that you wanted to play with says no, you can't play with us, and they leave and they go play somewhere else, and they leave you all by yourself, sad and alone. That's abandonment, where you feel like nobody wants you around, or that nobody cares about you. And so it's a very scary, sad, lonely feeling to feel abandoned. And Jesus today on the cross is feeling abandoned. He's feeling left by everyone, including God. And so I want to read this story about Jesus on the cross. Now, we have been talking about how Jesus was tortured and hung on the cross. And this little story is from a sermon done many years ago. And the section of it is called 3 Hours of Darkness. And so I want you to listen. I'm going to kind of interpret the story for children's ears. So it's going to be a little bit graphic, but not to the extent that it was originally written. So let's listen up. The crucifixion begins at 9 o'clock sharp. The Romans were punctual about things like that. At first, the crowd was rowdy and loud. And boisterous, as if it were some kind of athletic place where wagers and onlookers would shout all kinds of things at the people being crucified. It appeared that the man in the middle will not last long. He has already been severely beaten. In fact, it looks like 4 or 5 soldiers have taken turns working him over. His skin hangs from his back in tatters. His face is bruised and swollen, and there's blood that's trickling down his face. It's an awful sight to behold. There are voices from all 3 crosses, a kind of hoarse conversation shouted above the din. Little pieces float through the air, something that sounds like, "Father, forgive them." Something else about, "If you are the Son of God, then a promise in paradise." Finally, Jesus spots his mother and speaks to her. Then it happened. At noon, darkness fell upon all the land. It happened so suddenly that no one expected it. One moment, the sun was right overhead. The next moment, it had disappeared. It was not an eclipse, nor was it a dark cloud cover. It was darkness itself. Thick, inky black darkness that fell like a shroud over the land. It was darkness without any hint of light to come. It was chilling blackness that curdled the blood and froze the skin. No one moved. No one spoke. For once, even the profane soldiers stopped their swearing. Not a sound broke the dark silence over Skull Hill. Something eerie was going on. It was as if some evil force had taken over the earth and was somehow breathing out the darkness. You could almost reach out and feel the evil all around. From somewhere deep in the earth, there was a sound like some dark subterranean chuckle. It was the laughter of hell. It lasted for 3 long hours. 12:30, still dark. 1:15, still dark. 2:05, still dark. 2:55, still dark. 3 p.m., and just as suddenly as the darkness had descended, it disappeared. Voices now and shouting. Rubbing his eyes to adjust, one again to the bright sunlight, panic on many faces, confusion on others. A man leans over to his friend and cries out, "What in God's name is going on here?" All eyes focused on the center cross. It is clear that the end is near. Jesus is at the point of death. Whatever happened in those 3 hours of darkness has brought him to death's door. His strength is nearly gone. The struggle is almost over. His chest is heavy with every breath. His moans are only whispers now. Instinctively, the crowd pushes closer to watch his last moments. Suddenly, he screams. Only 4 words, but they came out in a gluttery roar. "Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani." The words are Aramaic, the common language of the day. The words form a question that screams across Skull Hill and drifts across the road. My God, why have you forsaken me?" And so I wanted to read you that story because that's how Jesus felt in that moment. He He felt like he had been abandoned, even by God. And there's lots of people smarter than me that have talked about how, Jesus may have felt abandoned by God, or maybe he was abandoned by God. I don't really know the answers to that, but I do know this, and here's the great part, that this awful abandonment is going to happen, but is going to fulfill the prophecy. On Friday, Jesus dies, but what we all know is what happens on Sunday is the resurrection, that Jesus goes to heaven, that Jesus lives again. And he is not dead. It is not always darkness. In fact, it turns to light. And I want us to think about that. As of right now, we're all supposed to be in our homes, kind of feeling a little bit abandoned by the world. Definitely, I am not comparing this to Jesus's abandonment. Don't think that. But I want us to think about a way that we can think about the future. Like, for example, when we're looking at Good Friday, we know that Easter's around the corner, that Jesus is going to live, that he is going to be resurrected. And so I want us to think about that. I want us to think about what's around the corner. What great things are we going to get to do once we get out of quarantine? And so I saw this week on Facebook this idea. It was not my idea. But I wanted to start it at my house. And so what I want for you to do, if you will, if your parents will, is get something like this, some kind of little jar. I wrote on mine, after Corona wishes. So it could be your bucket list, it could be your after Corona wishes, but my kids are always saying, I wish we could do this, I wish we could do that. And so I thought it would be a great idea to write down all the things that we wish we could do. Like, for example, Mally, and if anybody knows Mally, she loves Mexican food, okay? So we're going to write on there Mexican food for Mally, and we're going to put it in our after Corona jar, okay? And then after all this is over, we can look through here and pull out something, maybe one each week or one each night, and we're going to get to do these great things, right? Another one that some of my children are saying they want to hang out with friends. So maybe when all this is over, we get to have a sleepover, right? Or we get to have a little party. So we're going to put friend sleepover in our wish jar. Now, I don't know, obviously, how long this is going to last. But I do know this. It will come to an end, and it will be better. We will get to do all of these great things that are in our wish bucket. And so I want you to think about that. Don't focus on the things that you don't get to do right now. Think of the things that you will get to do when this is over. Think about Jesus not on the cross necessarily, but what it means when he's resurrected and that he lives again. So while we do need to know that Jesus died on the cross, we do need to know or need to put our faith and focus in the fact that he lives. He lives again. And I know I'm running out of time and I've taken a lot of your time, but I just want to say I love you. I miss you. Write down your wishes and think about all these awesome, fun things you can do when all this is over. Talk to you soon.